B movies have a reputation for being considered campy or corny. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, they don't have the resources necessarily. But if, B movies are like the lesser well done movies in my mind. And those tend to be, so bad they're good kind of thing. So bad it's good. We were just talking about camp in one of my classes. And I'd say, like, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is up there. It's pretty campy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a parody of B movies.
Yeah,
themselves,
it's
so good.
so good.
When you hear the term B-movie, what do you think of? While the average Joe automatically assumes B-movies are bad, low-quality, cinematic garbage, they've also been recognized as highly influential in the early days of the film industry.
The 70s was an amazing period for filmmaking because it became kind of like the new neorealism.
Yeah.
If you look at 70s movies, there's a lot of sweat, there's a lot of handheld camera. It feels very Italian neorealism to me, or the French neorealism of the time. So B movies, people got really interested in cinema again. I believe it became less slick and started looking at the B movies of the 50s. I think probably was the first time period where you could call it a B movie. And a lot of those movies were sci-fi movies and funny, by our standards, funny movies. So I don't think I just think it ramps up as time goes on. Of course, it takes a particular kind of personality to want to watch these B movies and to enjoy them for what they are, bringing something different to the table.
Google defines a B-movie as a low-budget movie, especially one made for use as a companion to the main attraction in a double feature. Even though most B-movies aren't considered classics, there's no doubt that they were also way, way ahead of their time, especially those released in the 1960s and 70s. Many of these are involved in a subgenre of B-movies known as exploitation films, which feature lurid content, graphic violence, or current societal trends. Pretty much all the exploitation B-movies of the 1960s and 70s were blaxploitation films such as Superfly, Dolomite, Cool Breeze, and Shaft. These films were some of the earliest films to include ethnic and racial diversity that major studio budget films at that time didn't. B-movies root all the way back to the silent film era and are a significant contributor to Hollywood's golden age. Back then, double features were really popular, so studios would screen an A-list film first so that afterwards they'd screen a B-list movie. That's usually used to fill space. Some people might confuse B-movies with indie movies, but there's a big difference between those. An independent filmmaker is aware of their financial limitations and uses their resources carefully. A B-movie director, on the other hand, is given a specific budget by a studio, which usually isn't as much as other studio films, and that leads to campier special effects, rushed acting, quick production, which adds a very specific tone which only appeals to someone like me, a guy who gets enjoyment from viewing campy movies. In a way, B-movies inspire me because these producers and directors are able to make a successful movie given the limited budget and hard deadlines. In that way, B-movies led the way for upcoming filmmakers and producers. Some fantastic pioneers of the B-movie genre include Ed Wood, Roger Corman, Russ Meyer, Samuel Fuller, Lloyd Kaufman, Larry Cohen, Herschel Gordon Lewis, William Castle, Jack Hill, and Andy Sidaris. And that's not many if you take into consideration the 8 decades B-movies have existed.
The great B filmmaker Roger Corman is known under various monikers such as the Pope of Pop Cinema and the spiritual godfather of New Hollywood, and the King of Cult. Do you think there will be a filmmaker in the future with like a similar type of reputation, or do you think that's already kind of past?
No, I don't think it's past. It'll change.
Yeah.
Just because our technology is changing all the time. It's so weird to me because streaming platforms have taken over.
Yeah.
So now television and film is the same in a way.
Oh, it
and
is,
its
yeah.
viewership. Yeah, people don't go to the theater as much. No. That whole kind of experiencing a film is sort of going the way that malls are going.
Yeah.
It's just change. So people stay in their homes more. They have giant screens. They have great technology at their fingertips. So I don't know. It's just going to change. But yes, of course, there'll be different B-movie makers
Yeah.
as time goes on.
B-movies that aren't exploitation films or film noirs mainly consisted of horror and sci-fi movies around the 50s and 60s. A company known as Tromaville was responsible for many cult classics of the B-movie eras, with movies such as The Toxic Avenger, Class of Nukem High, Tromeo and Juliet, and Poltergeist Night of the Chicken Dead. A big portion of these films include graphic violence mainstream movies didn't show. For example, 20 minutes into The Toxic Avenger, a group of psychotic teenagers murder an innocent kid by running him over with a car, smashing his head like a watermelon. Something like that usually received an NC-17 rating, but many B-movies don't receive ratings from the MPAA, therefore not getting a worldwide release. There's a term known as grindhouse cinemas, which is used to describe a category of low-budget films that were typically shown in rundown theaters known as grindhouses during the 70s in the United States. The term grindhouse comes from the burlesque theaters located on 42nd Street in New York City, which ground out cheap, lurid films all day long, so even B-movies that came out long after the golden age of Hollywood were still immensely popular due to grindhouses. B-movies may be the most controversial form of cinema in existence, but that's due to the campy reputation they've received over the years.
They're eating her! And then they're going to eat me! Oh my God!
You'd think there would be many parodies, but there's only one that's actually known, which is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The Rocky Horror Picture Show features science fiction elements, corny cheap special effects, bad acting, graphic sex, and violence. Basically everything you would see in a B-movie. The only difference is that the Rocky Horror Picture Show is a musical, which I think adds to the campiness. The digital age introduced direct-to-video films. Direct-to-video films are traditionally not as well known and contain the same elements B-movies have, but they're not the same. Why, you may ask? Simple, they don't get theatrically released. In other words, direct-to-video films are knockoff B-movies. A book was published in the 1980s called The Golden Turkey Awards, which awards movies that are iconically bad and or very campy. Plan 9 from Outer Space, released in 1959, was named the #1 bad movie, which created a resurgence in popularity amongst B-movies and molded an entire generations of fans that's lasted. Overall, B-movies have had a big impact on mainstream cinema. On February 23rd, Ethan Coen released a new B-movie titled Drive-Away Dolls, so I think it's quite evident that even though B-movies aren't as known anymore, their impact will live on forever. The fact that movies are becoming even more digital can only have a positive impact on producing B-movies, since adding CGI and practical effects is easier than ever, while still keeping that quirky B-movie quality. Special thanks to Lisa Padovani and Noe Aguilera for letting me interview them. Also, thank you for everyone who assisted me in the scripting and editing process.
In a filmmaking career that has spanned over 30 years, my next guest is the man responsible for such cinematic classics as The House of Usher, Wild Angels, The Monster from the Ocean Floor, The Attack of the Crab Monsters, Little Shop of Horrors, and hundreds of others. A great many of his films are considered cult favorites, and many of their stars are now the biggest names in Hollywood. Please welcome Roger Corman.
There's nobody in there that he didn't, in the most important way, support. He was, you know, my main my lifeblood to whatever I thought I was gonna be as a person. And you know, I hope he knows that this is not all hot air. I'm gonna cry now. Not just me, who's very sentimental, but these other people also love him.
Truly a legend in motion pictures, ladies and gentlemen, Roger Corman.